Namo Shakyamuni.
Shakyamuni Buddha.
Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.
Okay, thank you very much, Sapo. And thank you and welcome again, Sapo. We're very happy that you're back with us again. And tonight the topic is having 3 homes.
We need 3 homes.
We need 3 homes. Okay, so welcome everyone to this home. And Venerable Yolu will explain more. So take it away, Sapo.
Okay. Can you give me permission to share my screen?
Oh, okay, wait. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I hope everybody can see my screen now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna present this. Just give me a minute. Let's see if we can see it. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about three homes. All right, so the first question for you before we start going through the text, what do you think is the definition of the home? So you can either just voice out or you can just type in the chat box.
Sifu, home is where the heart is. So where your heart is, that's your home.
Okay.
Where your mind and your heart is.
All right. So I see safe record. Okay. And home is safety, right? And home is being with the family. Okay. And home is where your heart is, right? Wherever you want to go, wherever you belong to. Okay. So I think these are some answers that Rebel Master has when he was defining what it means by a home. So in this article, he started off by saying and defining what a home is. Okay. So first of all, he gives a very short and simple definition. A home is a place where you feel, a home is a place where you stay and you feel safe. Okay, I think this is what we all would agree on. So that's basically in general the definition of a home. And also he says that home is also a place of warmth, protection, shelter, and safety. So just like some of you would have already said, that home is a place that would provide safety. All right. And also, some of you have said that home is a family, right? So we have a narrow definition of a family, and we can also have an expanded definition of a family. So we can also include our in-laws, our uncles, our aunties, our siblings, and our friends can even be regarded as our family. Okay. So in brief, Global Master says, in brief, everyone has a family and home of some sort, regardless of one's occupational, social, or economic status. And so, and then the idea of home for travelers. Okay, home is a place where you return home and you feel joyful about returning. Okay, and so a home is also a place which is harmonious, peaceful, and genial, and that people feel a sense of closeness, mutual respect, and belonging upon their return. And then even if a person has been misunderstood by others, they know that they can be understood at home. All right. And it's also a place where families can forgive, tolerate each other's flaws and shortcomings. And that is what makes home so precious. Okay, so I think we all have the same idea of what a home is in general. Okay, and then in this article, Verbal Master talked about 3 different homes. He thinks that everybody should have 3 homes. Okay, so before we actually go into the content of this article, I just want everybody to just think about what you think are the 3 homes that everybody would need. So what you can do is you can scan the QR code on this screen and you can answer this question with your phone. Okay, you can scan the QR code and then you can just answer it with your phone. Okay, so somebody has replied saying that the first 2 homes will be the physical home and the spiritual home.
That's me, Sherfu. I didn't know it would come out as anonymous.
Okay. Okay. Home is a place where you take refuge. Okay, the physical home, the spiritual home, and liberation. Have you already read through the article? The family home, the FPS home, and the Dharma home. Okay, that's very nice. The physical home, the mental home, and the spiritual. I think we can see some common answers here. We can see the keyword physical and spiritual, right?
Sherfu, I have a question.
Yeah.
On the third home, which is the Pure Land, in the class we attend in another class, it was discussed that we can actually have the Pure Land right here, right now, when our minds are pure. So on those moments, it is possible for us to have that, right? While we are alive, like we don't need to wait till
Yes, it is possible. Yes. Yes, but I will go to that later on. Okay, it seems like most of you have already read this article, so you already knew what 3 homes are. So we have the physical, somebody says it's the physical home, and Hoguanshan, all right, so where you visit it every month. And there's somebody who replied saying physical, emotional ties, and love, and spiritual. too. Yeah, kind of like that. Okay. So let's see what Verbal Master says about the 3 homes. What's his ideas of the 3 homes. So the first home is what you guys have already guessed, the physical home. So according to Verbal Master, he describes it as an abode for one's physical body. It's a place where we can return for the night. And it's also a place that provides daily necessities and a location where relatives and friends congregate. All right, so that's, I think, what we all have in common. We all have a physical home that we can return to physically, and where is a place that can support us by providing us with daily necessities, and where we can return to at the end of the day, where we can settle for the night. And it's also a place where we can gather all our friends. Okay. And then the second one, I think most of you have already guessed it, is the spiritual home. So the spiritual home, Venerable Master describes it as a place that nourishes one's Dharma body through the cultivation of wisdom. It's a place of faith where one develops confidence, compassion, and morality, as well as how to conduct oneself with integrity. And so some of you have described this place as Boguanshan, right? Boguanshan is your spiritual home. And Venerable Master also describes it as a gas station where we can recharge ourselves spiritually and be fulfilled. It's also a school that increases our knowledge and skills. So that's where we learn more about the Dharma, where we also learn how to cook for the community. We also learn how to tour people who comes to the temple. And we also learn how to, maybe for some temples, they have to write the tablets and things like that. So that's where they learn certain skills that's related to the monastery. And it's also a department store that offers a wide variety of Dharma treasures. So that's where we can get to know more about humanistic Buddhism. We can get to know more about the basic teachings of Buddhism. And well, I would say this spiritual home is not only a physical place, it can be also an online space, right? So just as what we're doing here right now, we're all online on Zoom. So Zoom is also our spiritual home when we are gathering for discussion on the Dharma, right? Okay. And Rebel Master also says that what's the result of having a spiritual home of faith, morality, and wisdom is that one learns to do good deeds, speak good words, and have good intentions. So this is referring to our three physical modes of the karma, our physical karma, our verbal karma, and our mental or intentional karma, right? And that's how we practice on these three different aspects of our practice. And also one learns to generate generosity, precepts, patience, and meditative concentration. So this is also part of the 6 paramitas. So by sharing our resources, that's how we practice generosity, by keeping to the precepts, and also by being patient when we encounter situations or circumstances that are not to our liking. And of course, meditative concentration when we have meditation causes, and also when we are able to deal with situations in a very calm way. Okay. And the result of this spiritual home is that one develops faith in the Buddha. Of course, here Venerable Master is referring to Buddhists. He develops faith in the Buddha, but not only by praying or prostrating, but by practicing the Buddha's path. Okay, so by practicing the Buddha's path, this is also referring to how we act, how we conduct ourselves, and also how we interact with others, right? And this is what we kind of get to practice when we are at a spiritual home, because we have a community and the community supports our practice of that. Okay, another question for you. So do you have a spiritual home? And where is it? So our spiritual home is our study group. Okay, so for Guangshan is your spiritual home. It's our spiritual home. Okay, and somebody says that the physical spiritual home is Foguangshan, Manila, and Wisdom Park. I'm not sure where there is. And your mental spiritual home is when you are calm and examining the roots of your defilements, okay? So that's when you are being aware and when you are observing your mind, and that's where you are. So I would say a spiritual home is where we accumulate our wisdom and we accumulate our compassion, right? Our merits, and also where we develop our ability to be aware of the situation, of whatever situation that we are in. Okay, and then Verbal Master says that with enough cultivation and mastery, one advances from this spiritual home and reaches the highest goal, which represents our third home. Okay, so with enough cultivation and mastery, one advances from this spiritual home and reaches the highest goal, and which represents our third goal, or our third home. Okay, so we've covered so far. We have the first one is our physical home. So where we return for the night, where we have a place to feel safe and protected. And then we also have the spiritual home, okay, where we can accumulate our wisdom and our compassion. And so what is this third home? What's this third home referring to? Okay, so another question to you. What do you think is the third home? Okay, somebody says nirvana, and somebody says pure land. A state of happiness. Okay. Okay. Somebody says it specifies as the pure land where we reside in our ultimate bliss. And I would think that this means we have shattered all mental shackles of concepts, etc. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so is it a state of happiness? Well, I would say it's a state of everlasting happiness. So it's a happiness, it's not a state of happiness. It's not the kind of happiness that changes over time, but happiness which stays permanent and doesn't change over time. Okay. Okay, first let's see what Verbal Master says about the third home. So according to Verbal Master, he calls this the home of liberation. And Verbal Master says that this home can be heaven, and it can also be the pure land of ultimate bliss. Okay, and it depends on our causes and conditions that we arrive at this home. That means we have to accumulate the conditions in order to arrive at this home. And the merits that we accumulate in our spiritual home is the investment that nourishes and aids one to migrate to this third home. Okay, and Guru Master says that this is an ideal land, and it is one's true home where both the body and mind can abide in the joy of Chan and Dharma. All right. So this is how Verbal Master describes it. Okay. So this is the three homes. We have the physical home, the spiritual home, and then the home of liberation, right? So somebody said nirvana earlier. So nirvana is a state of liberation, right? A liberated state where you are no longer bound to the defilements that we are subjected to. Okay, and in the article, Verbal Master actually uses the word migration. So it's a migration from the spiritual home. And so that gives us an idea that if we want to migrate to liberation, we sort of need to accumulate the conditions for migration. And we need to do that in our spiritual home. Okay, so that means we need to kind of work out our merits. We need to kind of accumulate the causes and the conditions so that we can migrate from the spiritual home to the home of liberation. Okay, and I think what it also means is that the physical home and the spiritual home, these are temporary homes, and they happen in this world where we are living in right now, in this particular lifetime that we are in. Okay, but the home of liberation is a permanent home. Okay, so liberation is a permanent state. So it's not a state where it keeps changing with time, or it changes wherever you go. So it's a permanent home, and it's beyond this world. Okay, so it's not like you can find liberation in McDonald's. You don't find liberation in just by going to a particular place. It's beyond this world. Okay, so in order to migrate to this place that is beyond this world, you have to have certain conditions, right? Okay, so now we have this idea of home. So we also have the idea of coming home, right? So when we say we come home to our physical home, that means we can be returning from school, from work, from play, from social events, etc. When we say we return home to our spiritual home, so for example, when we go to our branch temples, or when we go to the church, or when we go to the mosque, so we're returning from certain social concepts, right? Certain conventional or worldly concepts, and going to a place which is beyond such concepts. Okay, and the home of liberation also suggests that we are returning from the samsaric world. Okay, we are returning from this this cycle of having to make a lot of habitual tendencies and actions that keep us in this samsaric world. Okay, and I also like to make a note that, home coming home is like returning. So like returning to whatever we already belong to. Okay. So home has the idea that we already have this nature. We already have this basic nature. And home also has the idea that we are never away. We have never been away from this home. That means we are just coming back. We are just coming back and returning to this basic nature. Okay. And what it also suggests is that we already have this home. Right. So in the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha expounded this Four Noble Truths. And so in this article, Prabhu Master referred the third home as the home of liberation. And so this home of liberation is actually the third truth, right? The truth of cessation. And the truth of cessation states that there is a possibility of reaching a state where dissatisfaction and suffering has ceased. Okay, so when we say that home and coming home is actually saying and suggesting that we already have this basic nature and that cessation is definitely possible. And I just also want to comment that this article, We Need Three Homes, this particular article is the only article that I found in the whole collection of Rebel Master's work, which proposes the idea of having three homes. Okay, so there are a lot of teachings that Rebel Master gave, which are kind of repeated. He kind of repeats the same concepts, or he repeats the same story, the same ideas again and again in different articles or in different places where he gives a teaching. But this idea of three homes is the only article which I found in the entire collection of Rebel Master's work where he proposes this idea of three homes. And I think the use of a home is a very skillful way of telling people that, first of all, as we see earlier, is a very skillful way of telling people that liberation is definitely possible. Okay, and it's also a very skillful way to indicate that the path to liberation is nothing external. That means you don't get to liberation by doing something external. You don't find it from external sources. Okay, and the idea of coming home means you come back to your inner mind. You come back to your inner nature. And that liberation is already there within yourself, and it's possible to find it just within yourself. You don't have to search externally to look for it. Okay, and also the idea of a home is that it provides security and safety and protection. Okay, and that's exactly what the truth of cessation is saying, right? Because the truth of cessation is telling us that it's possible to find ultimate security, ultimate safety from this ocean of suffering. Okay, so the definition, and using home as a definition and using home as an idea, I think it's a very skillful way of telling people that what we are looking for ultimately is, lasting security, lasting happiness. All right. So this idea of having a physical and a spiritual home, they are temporary homes, but this idea of liberation is always with us. It has always been with us, and it's going to stay with us also in the future. So it has never left us. Okay. So when we think about liberation, we shouldn't think of it as something that's external. We shouldn't think of it as, we need to achieve something externally. Instead, we should think of it as something that we already have and we already possess, and it's already within ourselves that we just need to discover for ourselves. All right. So somebody asked me the question earlier. about Pure Land, that you don't have to go to the Pure Land after you passed away. You can actually arrive at this Pure Land in this present lifetime. So where is this home that Verbal Master is referring to? This home that Verbal Master is referring to, I believe, is always here in the present moment. It's always here within your awareness. It's always here within your consciousness. Okay, but how do we get to this home? You need to be deeply connected with your own self-being. And that is something that is difficult. Why? Because we have our 6 senses, right? We have our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, and our mind. And what these 6 senses is doing, what they are doing is they are constantly looking externally. They are constantly, very curious about what's going on externally. Right. So if you just notice and if you're aware of what our 6 senses are doing, when we hear a voice, our mind immediately goes out to that voice, right? When we hear a sound, our mind is already not in the present, it's already at the sound. When we see something nice, our mind is already at that object of our sight. So that's the difficult part, because our 6 senses are always trying to look externally into and get involved externally with this world. Okay, so but we at the same time we also need to be aware that we already have this home within ourselves, and that we are already at home, in the sense that we do have this home of liberation within ourselves, and we have it every time or every single moment. Even when our mind is searching externally, this liberation has never left us. It's always there. It's always there. It's just that we are not aware. Okay, and I think that's something that's very important to know. So like what Master Lin Chi says, you already are what you want to become. Okay, so we are already sort of like liberated, but we already have the conditions to be liberated. We already have the potential to be liberated, but we need to tap on this potential. Okay, so how do we go home? So there's one sutra that I like to share. Okay, I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to share another screen. Okay, so this is a sutra from the Pali Canon. So let's go through this sutra. This sutra, can you see my screen? Right. So you can find this sutra in Majjhima Nikaya or Middle Discourses, number 131, and it's called One Fine Night. Okay, so I'm going to read through this text. So I have heard, at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. And there the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, Venerable Sir, they replied, and the Buddha said this: I shall teach you the passage for recitation and the analysis of One Fine Night. Listen and apply your mind well. I will speak. Yes, sir, they replied. The Buddha said this: don't run back to the past. Don't hope for the future. What's past is left behind. The future has not arrived. And phenomena in the present are clearly seen in every case. Knowing this, foster it, unfaltering, unshakable. Today's the day to kingly work. Who knows, tomorrow may bring death. For there is no bargain to be struck with death and his mighty hoods. The peaceful sage explained it's those who kingly meditate like this, tireless all night and day, who truly have that one fine night. How do you run back to the past? You master delight there, thinking, I had such form in the past. I had such feeling, perception, choice, consciousness in the past. And that's how you run back to the past. And how do you not run back to the past? You don't master delight there, thinking, I had such form in the past. I had such feeling, perception, choice, consciousness in the past. That's how you don't run back to the past. And how do you hope for the future? You master delight there, thinking, may I have such form in the future? May I have such feeling, perception, choice, consciousness in the future? That's how you hope for the future. And how do you not hope for the future? You don't master delight, thinking, may I have such form in the future? May I have such feeling, perception, choice, consciousness in the future? That's how you don't hope for the future. And how do you falter amid presently arising phenomena? It's when an unlearned, ordinary person has not seen the noble ones and is neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of the noble ones. They've not seen true persons and are neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of the true persons. They regard form as self, self as having form, form in self, and self in form. They regard feeling, okay, so they regard feeling the same way. They regard feeling as self, self as having as feeling, okay, as form, this feeling in self and self in feeling. All right, and the same for perception, choices, consciousness. Right, so as self, self as having consciousness, consciousness in self, or self in consciousness. And that's how you falter amid presently arising phenomena. And how do you not falter amid presently arising phenomena? It's when a learned noble disciple has seen the noble ones and is skilled and trained in the teaching of the noble ones. They've seen true persons and are skilled and trained in the teaching of the true persons. They don't regard form as self, self as having form, form in self or self in form. And they don't regard feeling, perception, choices, consciousness as self, self as having consciousness, consciousness in self or self in consciousness. That's how you don't falter amid presently arising phenomena. Okay, so in short, don't run back to the past. Don't hope for the future. What's past is left behind. The future has not arrived. And phenomena in the present are clearly seen in every case. Knowing this, foster it, unfaltering, unshakable. And today's the day to kingly work. Who knows, tomorrow may bring death. For there is no bargain to be struck with death and his mighty hoods. The peaceful sage explained it's those who keenly meditate like this, tireless all night and day, who truly have that one fine night. And that's what I meant when I said, I shall teach you the passage for recitation and the analysis of one fine night. And that is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the Mendicants approve what the Buddha said. All right, so that's this sutra on the one fine night. And this is a very popular sutra on how we should not run to the past and how our mind should not hope for the future. And also our mind should not focus on the self as having this form, nor is our self our feelings, nor is our self the thoughts that we have, and nor is it the volition. Volition means the decisions that we make. Okay? And it's also not the consciousness that we have, not even the consciousness that we have. And so if we are able to understand and being aware of this, then you can assess the present moment. Okay? Because the present moment is always taken away from us when we run to the past or we try to go to the future, or whenever an emotion arises in our mind, we get trapped in that emotion. Or whenever a thought comes to our mind, we get trapped in the thought. So the practice here is to rise above all these clashes, all these, the five the elements that comes and arise in our mind. Being aware. The practice here is to be aware of that and to have your mind rise above that. To see that as a phenomena that arises in your mind and not get trapped within it. But that's also the most difficult part, especially in our everyday life. Okay. I'm just wondering, any questions so far?
Someone did write a question in the Slido. I'll paste it in the chat.
Is it because we all have the Buddha nature, hence we return home when we uncover our Buddhahood? Yes. Well, once you discover once you uncover your Buddhahood, yes, you return home. Yes, yeah, definitely. It's like you realize, I think it's like a moment where you realize that you have never, that this nature has never left us. It's just always there. And at that moment, that when you realize that, you feel it feels like coming home.
Shifu Ube here. So in
Yes.
one fine night, the emphasis to us is to remember to just live in the present moment, right?
Yes.
And everything that we do daily, we also should not get attached to what happens in that day, correct?
Okay. First of all, the past and the future only happens in your thoughts.
Mm.
They don't happen in reality.
Mm.
Right? When we think about the future, it's not happening, but we think of it as a thought, as a concept. So it's the same for the past. When we recall the past, it's not happening, but it happens, it appears as a concept. And even in the present moment, you can never also truly grasp the present moment.
Mm.
Because it's fleeting, it's changing. And even if you were to think about the present moment, once you think of it, it's already gone.
Can I just ask? I still don't get it. So if I don't think about the future, then what is I'm gonna wake up and brush my teeth and have a shower? What does that count? What's the actual practice am I trying to do when these thoughts come up? Is there one that's are there thoughts about the future that is correct? Are there different types of future thoughts? I'm a bit confused.
The practice here is just to be aware that you have these thoughts and not be overtaken by them. So you have to like step back and see that, oh, I have this thought in my mind, and not get, overtaken by the thought. And then you start thinking about the future, and you start to visualize, what's going to happen next and next and next. And it's the energy is going to build up.
Let's say if I'm writing an essay, if I'm studying for something, and I can keep thinking again and again and again, right? I mean, how else do I write my emails and respond to people if I don't think about, okay, so not to be attached to it, or
As in you're making up a story.
yeah, if I'm no like if I for at work, I have to think about the future, right? Like someone's placed an order, I have to think about who I'm going to contact, those things. So they obviously I have to do them, but the practice is to be mindful of this phenomena coming up and not to be attached to it. Is that it?
Yeah. Well, you can, yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes we have to think about the future. We have to plan for the future, right? But no, being aware that you are right now, what you're doing, you are planning for the future. But you don't have to get obsessed with that. Until to the point that you can't come back to the present. And you lose your awareness of that.
So maybe part of it is just be mindful of where you are at every moment, whether maybe you have to judge whether you're thinking about it too much and you're stepping over the line.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Sifu,
Yes.
it means that, does it mean, it means that when you're thinking of establishing a task, you think about it, but don't overthink and don't be attached to that thought of completing it. So the minute that you're able to work on it, and at that moment you work on it, but you don't obsess on keep repeating it in your head that I have to do this tomorrow, I have to do
Yeah,
this,
sometimes
because
we
that
think
is
too much.
clinging to it. Okay.
Sometimes we think too much, and then we get like we anticipate what's going to happen and what's going to go wrong, right? And then we create a lot of fear within ourselves. We create a lot of fear thinking that, what if something goes wrong?
And it's the same with looking back, because when you think too much of what had happened, it can create a sense of attachment also to the past and create disappointment when you repeatedly think of something that happened in the past. So it's really telling you to to be in the present, so that your mind isn't you don't go into anxiety or the opposite, which is related to the past.
Yeah,
So your
sometimes
mind becomes clear and stays clear and it's not defiled.
yeah, sometimes when we overthink the past, there are things that we couldn't let go. and especially things that we did wrong, we felt there's guilt. The sense of guilt arises, and we can't let go because we think that, you know, the harm has been done. But if we are aware and we are at the present, then we have to think of it as a moment that's gone, and be able to let go of that, especially of the guilt that you feel. And it's actually a very healing process, right?
Shifu, may I add to that? I mean, I think it's important. I mean, at least in our tradition, I mean, I come from a Theravada tradition, but being in the Philippines, I'm mixed. I go to Fo Guangsheng also. The thing is, in the Theravada Vihara I attend, we make the Shifu there, the Dasha makes three distinctions. He says it's important not to confuse our thoughts. There's three types of thoughts. The one is avyagata, second is sankara. Whatever it is, the first type of thought is the daily thoughts we have, you know, like you have to go to work, you have to complete assignments and those things. That's all right, because for example, you solve on paper, you solve 1 + 1 is 2, and that's it, that's done with. That's not defilement. And then the number 2 type of thought is the pure thoughts, you know, the metta, karuna, those things, the Brahma Viharas. And number 3 is the problematic ones. It's called the Sankara thoughts. Those are the thoughts based on the 3 defilements. Those are the ones which we have to avoid. The thing what this Dasha says is the defiled thoughts make up maybe 5% of our daily thoughts, but they're the most troublesome because they're the ones which cause all the trouble. All the other thoughts are all right. You know, for example, if we're going to write an essay or a thesis, or, you know, do some calculations, do some reports, that's all right because there's technically almost no defilement involved, unless we confuse that, we start to get, oh no, that the other things we mentioned earlier, oh, what if this goes wrong, or what if that goes wrong? And then you have to be aware that's where the defilement is coming in. So I guess it's important to come back to that point. We're able to categorize our thoughts. Otherwise, we might get confused. You know, this is a question that comes up all the time, you know, in the meditation reviews in that vihara I attend. There's some people who say, oh, Shifu, oh, Dasha, you know, before I go to bed, you know, I start to think about the things that happened in the day. And, you know, I think those are all defilement. And then the Shifu says, no, that's not defilement. If it does not cause mental agitation, it's not defilement. So it's perfectly so I guess practices, just like what Peter said. For example, you're writing an essay. That's all right, because your mind is processing, oh, I'm going to write these thoughts. I'm going to put these ideas down. I'm going to look at this reference book. I'm going to do this citation. That's not defilement. But the moment you start to think, oh no, the deadline is coming close. What if this goes wrong? What if the professor does this? What if the deadline is moved close? Okay, now you have to start watching. That's the defilement. So we always come back to the main point of the Buddha, you know. I mean, in all traditions, the 3 poisons, all traditions agree on that. 3 poisons cause trouble. So let's avoid the trouble. Let's avoid those 5% of pesky thoughts which keep us in samsara. That's what I always come back to, at least. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. This is a very important point that you make.
Thank you, Shifu.
Yeah. So also we need to know that these thoughts, the thoughts that we also have, they are also forms of energy, right? Also the emotions that we have. And this energy, sometimes we get trapped in these energies. And so that's why meditation is so important, because it frees us from being trapped in the energies of these thoughts. So as much as possible throughout the day, so the practice here is throughout the day as much as possible, just take a moment or two and just observe, stand back, observe what's going on in my mind? And when you do that repetitively, then it builds up the habit. And then your mind will get, gradually it becomes a habit. And then once you have a thought, oh, I just have a thought again. And you don't get like, this person is creating so much trouble for me. Even that is a thought, right? But that's a thought, and you don't get trapped by it. You don't get taken away by it. So that's the practice that we can do. So come home, come home. So when I think what Venerable says, when he says come home, you come back to your mind, you come back to the present moment, you come back to your awareness. And that's the home that we already have, that's already within our mind. And we don't have to search. Like, we don't have to get rid of this person that we dislike. We don't have to get out of the situation that we don't like. But being aware, I think when you're aware, even if there are, disturbing thoughts that comes and emotions that they come, when you're aware that, okay, I'm having now a disturbing emotion, when you're aware of that, that already, you are temporarily separated from that emotion. That means you don't get, like, you don't stick to that emotion anymore. When you have that awareness, it's like it creates the gap between the emotion and your awareness. I hope I'm making myself clear.
I was just listening to a podcast yesterday. It's mostly about psychology, and though they're not Buddhists, they were saying that if you're feeling agitated, if you're feeling angry, if you're crying, just say, I am crying, I am angry. And they say that just by doing that, acknowledging that creates a gap between that emotion and yourself. I think it's very similar to what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. I also seen a scientist say that, anger, when anger arises, it doesn't hold more than 90 seconds. It doesn't stay within your mind for more than 90 seconds. But what makes it stay is that you add energy to it. And how do you add energy to it? You think about it. You think about it, you create thoughts about it, and that you make yourself even angrier. So yeah, so that's the thing. Thoughts are energy, like they are forms of energy, and they can add on to whatever disturbing emotions that you have. So the practice, come home, come back to whatever the moment that you're already in, and just stand back and just observe. And that's the best refuge that we can have, right? Even when we don't have our friends around us, when we don't have our families around us, that's this refuge that we can always go back to, which is in our mind.
Shifu, I probably can use like an analogy, like example, you're playing a game. So you're just focusing on hitting the ball instead of focusing on, I should win that trophy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Bodhisattvas have that mentality of playing a game. Even when they are, helping out and, doing a lot of things to help others, they always think of it as a game. So they don't get so attached to whatever they're doing. But of course, they have that concept of emptiness. They understand that this is empty by nature. And that's why they can treat it like a game. Yeah, so it's also very skillful to play with your mind. It's like when you have a emotion coming up, you just play with it. Oh, I know you're here. And let's see how long you're going to stay.
Chef, I have a question. This is Erwin. Can you hear, Seppo?
Right. Yes.
We talk about returning home, like going home to our physical home, spiritual home, right? So that's easy to understand. I'm thinking, is it possible to return to our, how do you call that, liberation home, but temporarily, since we're not a Buddha yet? You know, I'm thinking sometimes, for example, within the day, I feel a sense of gratitude, sense of happiness, but it only happens to me, you know, for a few short moments, and then after a while doing something else, you know, I have another sort of feelings already. So I'm thinking maybe that's temporarily going back to the liberation home, but since we're not yet a Buddha, we're not able to sustain it permanently.
The moment you're able to sustain it permanently, you're already a Buddha. Right? Because the word Buddha means awareness, sustained awareness. So yeah, so make it a practice. So that's why it's so important to come home again and again and again and again. Right? Just practicing awareness again and again and again and again.
So it just,
until it becomes sustained.
yeah, it gets longer.
Yes.
I think it's important that that is pointed out because in our previous sessions, two things are coming up. I mean, one, the idea that what is really important to us as practicing Buddhists, diba? Why are we practicing Buddhism? What is the value that we saw in it? Why is it that some of our co-practitioners have gone forth and ordained as monastics? Because all of us have seen at some point that the three poisons or whatever, what else is out there in the Dharma is actually legitimate, that there are causes for our suffering and that we're able to deracinate it. So I guess it's important, that this idea of home comes about, that there's a point of, at the end of the day, after a very tiring and long day, you recall, why exactly am I doing this again? Is this really important? My main mission as a human being, as a practicing Buddhist is, well, not really the Buddhist label, as somebody who follows Sakyamuni and the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, is this: to liberate myself and liberate all sentient beings from suffering. I guess it's very important to come back to that point. Otherwise, we'll get lost, because I work in a Catholic school and, the focus is, you start a day with prayer. And as a Buddhist, I don't know, as a teacher in a Catholic school, I tell my students, yeah, okay, you attend Mass and you pray. But as a practicing Buddhist, I'm like, where do I start? So I've been asking this question, and I guess it's important to come to that. And another thing is, yes, what Sir Irwin pointed out, I have also experienced that. What our Dasha says is, at some point when your meditation becomes very good, you come to a point of clarity, and a brief moment of clarity, because the three poisons are quite heavy force. That brief moment of clarity, that brief moment of deep peace, that's the nirvana, that's the nibbana. And then it goes away. And then he cracks a joke and says, you have tasted nibbana for a while. If you can't sustain that, you cannot sustain that yet. But it's good that you experience that, because then you know what nibbana feels like, what becoming lohan feels like, lohan, arahat, or whatever you call enlightened being is. So those are the 2 points, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful points. Very helpful.
Thank you, Shifu.
Okay. So thank you very much for sharing all your insightful thoughts and ideas with me. So I guess I think that's the point that Rebel Master is trying to make. And it's also a very special article because this is the only I think the only article that I found where Rebel Master brought up this idea of having 3 homes. And I think ultimately the most important home is where when we come back to what we already are, okay? That sense of awareness that we already possess, and to come back to that again and again, over and over again, and make it sustained as a practice. And so that's coming home, right? And we don't have to search. And it's such a wonderful news, because then we know that we don't have to search externally. We just have to come back to ourselves and have a deep connection with this sense of being that is right rooted in our mind, our inner mind. And to have that connection again and again and again. And everybody possesses this connection. Everybody possesses this sense of being, and it's all up to us to tap on it. And so so for me, this is really good news, that I don't have to search anymore in the future. I don't have to search in the future. I don't have to search externally. And I just need to tap within my own inner resources. And this mind is actually, like sky, is always aware. And it's really always aware, and it's beyond our senses, and it's actually up to us to discover that for ourselves. Okay, so I can think about this question: what is that you, when you were born up to now, that has never changed? You have that sense of being, right? Every one of us has the sense of being. And it has never changed. It's not your form. It's not your emotions. It's not your thoughts, the thoughts that you have. But you have that sense of being and that thing. And stay with that thing that you have. You know, that thing that stays with you all the time. It's very difficult to describe it in words, but I think you know what I mean. That sense of being yourself from the moment you were born up to now, that has never changed.
Is it our Buddha nature?
It is. And just get connected with it again and again and again and again. All right. So I guess we are a little over time. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I like to share tonight. So thank you very much for attending and for giving me the time to share this with you.
Thank you very much, Sepo. Anybody else have any questions, clarifications? If you still cannot find your home. If none, I like this topic very much, Sepo. It's very nice. Every day we come home, especially when we're hungry. So hopefully everyone will come home to our spiritual home also here in the study group. every week. So just like going home to our physical home, we don't go home only when we're hungry. We go home every day, right? So hopefully we'll see each other every week also here. Not only when you have problem. Because if you don't have problem, then you can come here and help the others. Okay. So if there's no more questions, then we'll proceed with the dedication of merits. I'll share my screen. Pounds join, everyone. Oops, I forgot to share the computer sound. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sepo.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shifu.
Thank you, Sifu.
Thank you, everyone. Time to go home.
Thank you,
Thank
Shafu.
you. Bye.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. See you guys.